Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Keep St. George in my heart, I pray. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Let us celebrate our St. George's Day. On April 23rd we should be happy. It should be a holiday for all. But English traditions count for nothing, as patriotism is not allowed. But it's fine for every other country to celebrate their patron saint's day. But if you say you're proud to be English, your equal rights are taken away. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Keep St. George in my heart, I pray. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Let us celebrate St. George's Day. Our respect for other cultures is expected, and tolerance demanded from us. But our Englishness is now being eroded, as we are made to feel that we don't belong. We just want to be treated fairly. Our English pride must be preserved. All we want is the right to be English. Let us celebrate St. George's Day. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Keep St. George in my heart, I pray. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Let us celebrate St. George's Day. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Keep St. George in my heart, I pray. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. Let us celebrate our St. George's Day.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a live episode of the Chris Mitchell podcast. I ain't done a live for ages, but I thought I'd treat you guys. Part 2 with Alek Yerbury. Guys, if you want to ask any questions, please put it in the chat and I will get around to asking it. See a question from Top Cat. We'll go to that shortly. Just to keep you updated with myself. Any plans coming forward? Obviously, if you're not aware, I am doing a 12-country challenge this year. I've already got 4 or 5 videos up. I've done a couple of them in Serbia, France, Italy. I'm going to Macedonia, Hungary, and Serbia in 4 weeks today. Big cheese. So I can't wait for that. That'll be country 6 completed. But yeah, shows. I've got 1 or 2 lined up myself, streams. I'm also trying to platform other people. We've seen 2 great shows so far with Paris and Nick Griffin and David Clues. I'm looking to set up part 2 with both of them, actually. I'm also looking to set up Alek Yerbury and Nick Griffin at some point in the future too. And also Alek Yerbury and Paris will also be doing a stream at some point. So how is everyone in the chat? Let's get some England flags in the chat. What a tune, man. Keep St. George in my heart, keep me English. What an amazing tune. I hope you all had a great St. George's Day the other Sunday. But let's introduce our guest. Obviously, a lot's happened since we first spoke. With demos, he's set up a website, and we'll go through all that shortly. Again, guys, if you want to ask any questions, please put them in the chat, and I will get them asked. But let's go and introduce Alek. Anyone that doesn't know you, which I'm sure is impossible, please give a little introduction of yourself and how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. I'm a British nationalist. I've worked with other organisations in the past. Now I'm building my own. I've been involved along with some others, both within my organisations, if you like, but also within other organisations. I've been involved in some of these large demonstrations that have been happening recently, like Lincoln, Skegness, etc. And there's more things coming up. They're not necessarily my demonstrations. I've been invited to a few of them. I've been invited to Walsall. I've been asked to speak at Leeds, and so yeah, I'd say I've now sort of gone down the route of active, real world nationalism.
Yeah, I mean, and you're doing a great job. We're going to play one of your speeches. We're going to show a speech from Anglo-Joe at Skegness, I believe. I think the one we're showing of you was in Lincoln the week before, and a bit of a march. We'll show a couple of videos of that. You're doing fine work, and everyone taking part is also doing fine work. Let's not forget about all the people that's attending these demonstrations. Hard-earned money goes on traveling, etc. So fair play to every one of them. It's not the Alek show or anything. So
No, it isn't.
attest to that as well. So, and also credit to every other speaker as well. So I just want to put that out there. But we'll go to three of these questions while they're in the chat, and then we can move forward. So we'll start off with our top cat. Evening to you, sir. By the way, he does a show every Friday, Top Cats Bar, on his channel. He had Alek Yerbury on last week in a brief appearance, probably about 20 to 40 minutes. If you want to go and check that out, pretty interesting. And he does a show every Friday. But he said, "Hi, Chris. I'd like to ask Alek who, if any, his inspirations are. And it doesn't necessarily have to be politicians."
Oh,
apart from me, you don't have to name me, but yeah.
So I'll try to think, because obviously there are a few like political figures. I could talk about people like Napoleon or whatever. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you a non-political figure that I have a lot of admiration for. And if there's any sort of if there's any Hope Not Hate agents watching this, they're going to have a fit when I say who I'm about to say. And who I'm about to say is Richard Wagner. That is the German composer Wagner. Now, the reason I admire this man is because, yes, he was a great composer, but if you actually read his written works, you can tell that he was actually as well not just a talented man, but an extremely clever man. And the way I would describe him is he was somebody who, believe it or not, actually had relatively little musical talent as composers went. But what he did have was an enormous intellect. And so he was capable of creating music that was quite unlike anything else that had come before, or in many ways, unlike anything else that has come since. And it's because he did it not with talent, but with his own mind. I mean, he wrote The Ring of the Nibelung, which took him 25 years to write, and it's a series of operas that's 15 hours long. And it's just impressive that one person's mind could do that. And so, yeah, I find that quite inspirational.
It's a good answer. Hope Not Hate will have a fit over that.
They will.
He's going to be tarred as a far right extremist now. This Richard Wagner. How dare you, Alek? How dare you? What about political wise? Do you have any? That's my question actually. So we can still go with Top Cat as well, half and half. So do you have any inspirations politically?
I have a lot of admiration for Napoleon Bonaparte, and I've talked with somebody else about this as well, and they actually agreed with me. One of the things that I find most inspirational and impressive about Napoleon was the fact that, yes, I know ultimately in the end he didn't get what he wanted, but the fact was that one man made himself such an obstacle to his enemies that it took the entire might of Western civilization 20 years just to get rid of one person. And that, to me, that's I find that impressive and I find that inspirational.
It's a good comment. Good comment. All right, we'll move on to the next one. We'll get these done. Again, guys, if you have any questions, guys, completely free, by the way. It's free to ask questions here. Evening, guys. Clarence, good guy, by the way, very good guy. Still got to meet me, bro. You're not too far, so let's set something up in the future. Get in my DMs, bro. Evening, guys. My question for Alek is: would he be willing in future to join an established political party such as the British Democrats, for example?
Well, I might actually sort of answer that question in a bit when we're talking about organizations and things like that. I probably by the end of this stream will have answered that question.
Yeah, and also you was actually helping what's his name, Jim Luthwaite.
Yes.
Was that last weekend? Was it?
Yes. Himself, some of his colleagues at the BDP and some others sort of answered the call, if you like, and we agreed to give him a hand leafleting, get some last minute leaflets out before the election. I mean, to be fair, they've done an incredible amount of work, and I think they've leafleted the whole of White Ward multiple times. So hopefully it pays off. It'd be really good for him to win that, because he deserves to, because he's been campaigning there for so many years, and the amount of effort that's gone into it is colossal. So, you know, hopefully the results are the results are good.
I mean, well, what would you expect as a good result? I mean, I'm not being black-pilled here, mate. I'm trying not to be, but I think it's realistic. I don't think anyone standing as a hope today, to be honest. I'm sorry for being negative. But what would you consider as a victory tonight for anyone?
So to be honest with you, and I have said this a few times, me personally, and again, to answer that question where they were talking about electoral politics, I'm unlikely to spend much time personally investing in local politics. I don't believe that local elections can yield enough to actually modify the situation at a national level. I understand why there might be some kind of tactical advantage to local elections in certain circumstances. And ultimately, if the choice that people have is either local elections or nothing, then obviously I'm going to support them and say, do the local election route. But if you wanted my honest answer, I believe that if you were to sort of assess it, then you've got to sort of think about things and say, right, just because a certain battle is easier to win, does it necessarily mean that that battle is worth winning? And my concern is that, you know, winning a few council seats, given that the problems that are inundating the country are problems that exist on a national scale, the ability of something like a council to even put the slightest obstacle in the way of those issues is effectively zero. And so, yeah, I do understand why you're saying what you're saying, and to a large degree, I actually agree with it. It's just at this time the choices seem to be between the local election route or nothing. Therefore, I'll say, well, if you're doing the local election route, I'll support you doing that, because
you've got to try, though, haven't you? Like, no point just for like admitting defeat. You've got to go out there and try, and that should be applauded.
Yes.
I mean, on the other hand, though, Top Cat's good friend there, Ashley Simon. I mean, so people could say, like, well, what about this situation? Ashley Simon came second last year in the elections. I think Labour beat her, but coming second, I mean, that's above a lot of people for an organisation like Britain First. So that would be deemed as a very, very good result. And
I mean,
me saying, look, mate, you know, like coming second, that's no joke.
No, and I absolutely agree. And like I said, I'm not criticizing anybody at all, and I'm not criticizing the amount of effort that's going into these things at all. I mean, I was more than happy to help Jim Luthwaite do his leafleting. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm not criticizing people for doing things when at this point, I'm not in a position to offer something better myself in terms of electoral politics, not at this stage. And so I'm not going to denigrate anybody for doing that. It's just on a strategic level, like on a tactical level, there can be some sort of victory, but on a strategic level, it's going to take an attack on a national scale to be able to actually remedy the problem. You can't fight national problems at a local level, and people know this. They must be aware of this, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Let's move. Obviously, we'll go into your organisation very shortly. Let me just mute one of these pages that keep popping up. Where are we? Right. Okay. Obviously, we'll probably delve into this a little bit more as the show, but we'll ask the question as it's a question for Alek. Would you be interested in the half-price Homeland membership at the bargain price of $14.88?
I think you would have to offer to pay me money to join that, and even then, I'd be unlikely to do it.
Oh, that's getting clicked. That is getting clicked and shared everywhere. That's the next viral clip. Maybe there's a few more to come after a few more questions on that particular subject. Right, we'll get through these. If you've got questions, put it in the chat, guys, and I'll get through them. Obviously, we've got our own stuff to talk about as well, but this is why the purpose of the live, so you guys can also ask your questions too. So do put them forward. Please, can you ask Alek to ask people to fly the St. George's flag without text or other symbols? Also, flags from lampposts and murals will help to instill national pride. You know what? Just before you answer this, I mean, I absolutely 100% agree with this. Especially the last bit. When I went to Northern Ireland, bro, and I still think they're the minority, the patriots over there. The flags and murals everywhere, and mate, it just gave me a little hope. It's like, mate, I've just spent 40 minutes on a plane getting here, and all you're seeing is the UK flag and Northern Ireland flag absolutely everywhere. No shame in it, no fear on their opposition. They just fly it with pride. Whereas here, I think, I've got an England flag outside my house, by the way. But there's a lot of fear here of being labelled racist and Nazi, blah, blah, blah. But I do think that this would help. I mean, I have called for it before. I do think we should go out and get all our lampposts covered in the St. George's flag, defaced, of course. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, no, I effectively I agree with you. I mean, at the events that I've been at recently, whether it's Lincoln, whether it's Skegness, I've noticed more and more, and it's happening organically. The flags are creeping in. You've got England flags, you've got Union Jacks, and that's as it should be. And on my channel, somebody made a comment which I thought was a very accurate comment, where they sort of said that one of the reasons they think that the events were well received was because of that, and because of the imagery and the flags, etc. She said it was putting forward something that basically belonged to everybody, rather than putting a brand on something that only belongs to a very small number of people. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And so when you're talking about having flags and how it should happen more, I think it does make you feel better, and it creates that sense of belonging that I think not a lot of people don't have now, or a lot of people have maybe forgotten what it is to feel like.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is not necessarily. Obviously, I don't like PA or Homeland. It's not necessarily too much of a dig, because of my dislike for them. But when you see their demos, it's just their own brand, and I have no affinity to you. I do still respect what you're doing, and you're going out there, and it's still a risk of whatever. But I don't want to be seeing Homeland flags. I don't want to see PA flags. I don't like yours, and many people don't want to be associated with that flag. But when I watch the demos, I know it's not. I know you'll keep saying it's not your demos, but the demos you're associated with, mate, honestly, and you're doing the marches. This is what we need as a country, as an island, everyone under one banner, our fucking flag. Do you know, how proud? I don't care if there was loads of PA and Homeland members were in that crowd. Fly the St. George's flag, fly the UK flag if you have to. Fly the Scottish, fly the Welsh, flag, fly the Northern Line. I was like, oh, it just honestly it gives me goosebumps. And we've got a little march we'll show shortly, but absolutely outstanding. It really, puts the hairs on the back of your spine raises, man. Like watching the people you're associating with and the things that you're doing as well, and seeing you at the front row bossing it, man. So also well done, man. Yeah, like it's given me a real sense of pride, and I think what you guys are doing is really giving us a lot of belief at the moment. And as you can see,
Well,
there's a lot
like I said,
of uniting together at the moment.
like I said, I can't take credit for it really. I'm not interested in taking credit for it. Not some of them I organise, others I don't. There's a lot of people behind the scenes that do a lot of the thankless
Yeah.
work, like talking to the police, dealing with the admin, etc., etc. Scott Pitsey has been absolutely brilliant. He's been organising, and doing the liaison and everything for all of the Lincolnshire-based stuff, and he's really, really good at it. And he's now gives speeches, and David Sunderland, who the man who leads Yorkshire Patriots. I'm really proud of working with him on some of these events now. Really good guy. He's been campaigning for so many years on these issues, so it's really good. And it's an honor really to be able to sort of share a platform with him, and to hear what he's got to say on things, because it's as you say, it's got to be like a united effort now, and people's egos have got to go, because the amount of damage it's doing is, when people allow egomania to control what they do, the damage is horrendous.
Yeah, I mean, if you put the numbers of all groups and organisations, their members, all on the street together with whoever's flag, apart from their brand flag, mate, we'd have major numbers up and down the country every weekend. But because of it's a certain organisation, people are like, oh, they go in. I don't want to go to that. Oh, they're going, but they're not taking their banners, but they're taking like the English flag or the Welsh flag, Irish flag, etc. Yeah, and I think a lot more people would go. They just don't want to be associated with certain brands, and that goes for all of them. Like Britain First are saying, all other organisations, British Democrats. But if they'd done a demo, I'm sure there would be some that I don't really want to be flying under their flag. But if we all flew under our flag, our own nation's flags, then I think you see huge numbers on the streets, and I think that is why your particular, like not your group, the people you're working with. I think this is why that particular group and other groups that are working within yourselves are seeing the better numbers than anyone right now. It's because it's under a united banner. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think that's somewhat true. I mean, I tell you, upcoming things that I hope get a really good turnout is I hope the Walsall event on Bank Holiday Monday gets a really good turnout, because the people that have organised that, just to put it out there now, I haven't organised that. It's nothing to do with me. I've been invited to go, and that's it. But they've done so much work organising that, and they deserve to. I hope that is the biggest one of the year.
Well, good luck. I kind of hope it is too, being like close to my home city. So, so yeah, good luck, man. We need something down here, mate. Like I looked at Skegness. It would have cost me for that train when you was there last week or week before. £170 return that same day. I'm like 170, mate. I literally travelled to Nice, to Belgrade, and back home for £36.
Oh, I'm pretty sure that British trains per mile are the most expensive on the planet, and they're by no means the most good. Or sorry, but that's a terrible English. They're by no means the best, but they're the most expensive per mile in the world, apparently.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, man. Absolute rip-off. It's cheaper for me to fly to two different countries and back home than it is traveling. And it's not. I don't even think it's that far. Like Skegness probably be 3 hours, about 2.5, 3 hours from Great Yarmouth, Norwich. Well, yeah. So it's a bit of a joke. Right, but let's move on. Rory Herbert has said, changing a bit of a topic here, but there's no bother. What was Alek's scariest time while serving in the British Army? Mine was nearly being run over by a troop of Leopard 2 tanks during a Cold War exercise. Over to you, Alek.
Oh, I'm trying to think something that happened to me. I'm trying. That's hard one because I can immediately think of things that happened to other people that were a lot scarier than things which happened to me.
Come on, then do one of each. Then tell one of yours.
Oh God!
And the scary.
No, I'm really having to rack my brain actually because I can immediately. Okay, well, while I'm thinking about the scariest thing that happened to me, the scariest thing I saw happen to somebody else was when we were in Latvia on a training area called Adazi in Latvia, and a Challenger 2 tank drove over this guy's legs. Now, by pure luck, the ground that it was on was like really soft, dry sand, and no one could really believe it. But it drove over his legs and didn't actually like damage him. It just pushed his legs into the sand, and like you didn't. It took a second for people to process what had just happened, but there was nothing. Like it did no injury to him, and that guy you could tell. Yeah, was not in a good state after that happened. But scariest thing that happened to me, I don't know. I had a habit of avoiding crazy things like that. To be honest with you, I had a habit of just not ending up in those kind of situations.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you're moving on from that. You don't really. You want to come back? If you want to come back to it, you can come back to it. If you
yeah, I'll try and rack my brain because I've forgotten a lot. I've remembered all the stuff that happened to other people, but I've forgotten a lot of the stuff that happened to me.
No worries. I hope that's answered your question, Rory. We'll hopefully get a story out of Alek. It sounds all very dodgy. This is like a state asset to me if he has not had a scary time in the army. All right, Top Cat, another question for Top Cat. Why did Alek decide to stick his head above the parapet as opposed to living the easy life? And where does he see himself in 5 years? Hopefully behind the desk saying, England first, bitch, I'm your new Prime Minister. That's what I think we should, that's what I would hope. But, yeah.
Sorry, like if you can hear that in the background, I think somebody's setting off fireworks near where I live. Anyway, yeah, so... why did I stick my head above the parapet? Well, in many ways, I think my head was already above the parapet. A lot of the things I do in nationalism now, even things that people might think are quite confrontational. Like I don't know, if I go to a demo and there's Antifa, I honestly look at that and think, well, there was worse things in the army than that. There's scarier people in the world than that, and so I look at it and sort of think, well, my head was already above the parapet, so there was no need to take it away or to put it down.
Fair enough. Good answer. I'm going to try and get through these quickly. Again, guys, you can put questions in. I will ask. Obviously, we do have other stuff to talk about. Whatever his name is, I think he was just literally blindfolded typing on his keyboard, putting his name. But we'll ask the question. My question is, how do we stop the proliferation of National Socialism in nationalist movements like your own, given that it's a Khazarian psyop? We need our people to move on by this fed up.
To be honest, so what's he actually asking?
I'm guessing it sounds like, how do we stop National Socialism?
Look, I think so. Something that I've encountered in the circles I'm in and the people I speak to, there's people who have different opinions on, things like fascism, National Socialism, the Second World War, etc., etc. And look, something that I've found is that 10% of people have a very strong opinion one way on it. 10% of people have a very strong opinion the other way on it. But 80% of people just want to move on. They're more interested in issues and problems that are happening now. Yeah. And at the same time, most people in the world do not view the world through the prism of ideology. They're not interested in debating the pros and cons of ideological points of view, because it's not something that really affects them in their daily life. They'll happily talk about how inflation's causing them problems or how immigration's causing them problems. But if you try and sit there going through an academic ideological point of view with them, they don't really have the interest or the time to care about it. And so, I don't view the situation we're in as an ideological war. I view it as an existential war. It's a fight for survival. It's not a fight for one ideology over another.
I completely agree. I mean, like, I get a few on the group, and it's Chris, you want to be mixing with this guy? I was like, look, he's got his own opinions, and like, I'm not really interested in having the debates over 1930s, whatever. Like, I'm not saying they're wrong. There's so many different stories, and it's like, well, you guys can have a debate and you guys have a quiet discussion, but I'm here for what's happening to my people now. I'm a minority in my own city. We're a minority in several cities and towns across the country. This is what we need to be pushing at the forefront, not who was right or wrong 70, 80 years ago, plus give or take more. We need to be focusing what's going on right now. And there's, our girls are being, raped and tortured up and down the country. We need to be looking at the present. Our mind has to stop by. We need to teach our minds to stop living in the past or the future, because we can't do shit about it, yeah. But we can do something in the present time, and that is where our mindset should be, right here and now. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think as much as that there are heroic people from the past, and there are people worth looking up to, and the question was even asked at me at the beginning of the show, which was who people I find inspirational. But the truth is that it's time that we started making new heroes. If people feel like society is missing a certain hero, then the solution is that's what they need to become. There's no point in trying to lionize people who are long gone. If you think society is missing something, if you think the world needs a certain individual, then the solution is you have to become that.
Completely agree. Yeah, let's make our own heroes. Alek, Yerbury, step up to the plate, son. Step up. You can be the hero for our people, the savior. Might want to lose the tosh though. Grow a little goatee and shave your head. Look like Stone Cold Steve Austin or something. Is Alek's group a populist group?
I would argue it is, but then I would also argue that any genuine political or politically related group would be as well, because is not the function of the state to do what is in the interest of the majority of its people? Is that not what populism is? I don't know why people look at what they call populism as though it's something which is bad. I mean, to me, that is the function of the state. That is the function of leadership, is to do what's in the best interest of the group as a whole, not any particular individual within it. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. I would argue that, yeah, absolutely, it is a populist group, and that's absolutely a good thing.
Oh, that's one. Steve, well, we'll go with one joke one. And this one. What's your favourite kebab, Alek?
If I did have a kebab, I would probably have it. I'd just have kebab meat on its own if I did have a kebab.
You've got to have a bit of chili sauce and mayo, sure. Add a bit of spice to it.
No, I don't know. I'm not a fan of kebab shop chili sauce or kebab nationalism.
Kebab nationalism is taking over. Big shoes, you heard it here first. No, but the more serious one, we'll go on to our topics. Why did Alek leave the army?
Okay, so I've been asked this a few times, but I'll happily answer it again. My motivation for leaving the army was my disgust with the political establishment, my disgust with the MOD, the fact that I was not prepared to give any more of my time or effort to people that I despised, and I didn't hide that. I actually wrote that when you sign off and you go for your interview with the commanding officer and you got to say why you've signed off. I straight up said that to him. Nobody criticized me for saying that. Nobody argued I was wrong. Everybody just respected it. And I think it's a reason that a lot of people have when they actually leave the army, but very few people will actually say.
Do you look back and regret it though, Alec, or do you think like you made the right decision?
There are some things that I miss. There are a lot of people that I miss, working with and socializing with, but I still keep in touch with a lot of those people. And I'm also happy doing what I'm doing now. I don't necessarily feel like I've demobilized in any way. I just feel like now I'm mobilizing myself for a very different sort of battle. But I'm still doing exactly the same as what I was doing before, which is waging war on the enemies of the nation. I'm just doing it in a better way, in a different way. And for the first time, I'm actually satisfied that I'm fighting the real enemy.
Has any of your army colleagues, comrades, messaged you about like your politics in a negative way, like they're disgusted with you for like?
Multiple people have discussed it with me. Nobody has in a negative way.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I might have asked you before, but I'll ask you again just to get your answer confirmed. If you was to be in power, or obviously one of our groups were in power, would you support bringing national service back to our people?
Yes, I would.
And why? And why? Go on, and why?
Because the way I look at it, the protection of society is a duty that all men have, and I do not think it is right. In fact, I think it's totally hypocritical for people to exist in a peaceful, prosperous society, but at the same time to not be prepared to actually contribute to creating that by protecting it. I also think that it is a way of giving people a sense of pride, a sense of self-respect. But definitely, it's the fact that by making all young men spend some time in the military, it will effectively banish any kind of hypocrisy from people. It will put people in an environment where they actually have to behave in what I would call a nationalistically minded way, where they'll have to actually experience things like putting the good of the group before the good of themselves. They'll actually have to experience what comradeship is. They will actually then understand that there is dirty work that goes into building society, and they won't be in ignorance of it. I think that's one of the reasons that you have people like liberals, like Marxists. The reason those people exist is because it's become too easy for people to become insulated from the dirty work that goes into making society what it is. And so they have these heartfelt delusions about how nice and happy and compassionate the world is, because they are ignorant to how ruthless and brutal the world is. And because of that ignorance, everybody suffers.
Yeah. I mean, like, if there was national service, I do think it could work, because obviously you're getting to get a lot of young lads in trouble, or, maybe addicted to drugs, drink very early on in their life. And I think if you're being, kind of, should I just say, forced, we'd be lost without which I agree. But if they were made to go into national service, then that will surely instill a lot of discipline and could lead them into living a better life for when they to come out and come into adulthood back in the UK.
Yeah, I don't think it would do anybody any harm at all. And if you speak to a lot of people that back when national service existed, the common consensus among everybody I've ever spoken to is that at the time everybody hated it, and then afterwards everybody was glad they did it. But again, I support it largely for ideological reasons. This idea that if you want rights, you also have responsibilities. But I'm happy now that for the rest of my life I can say that without being a hypocrite, because at the end of the day, if I now advocate things like conscription, all I'm asking people to do is to just do what I did. It can be done. There are things which are hard, but you can do it. I'm not better than anybody else. If I can do it, other people can do it as well.
Yeah. This is obviously I've seen a question up there. I'll go to that shortly, Steve. But just as we're on this topic, Forbes B said, "Is the army compromise run by Freemasons on behalf of deep state controllers?"
No, I would say the army is not run by Freemasons. The thing with the army is the army and the politicians are two very different sets of people. Um, the Ministry of Defense is very left wing, very politicized, but the actual mass of the people in the military aren't. And there's almost like a strange unspoken there's a strange unspoken knowledge that the two sets of people are very misaligned politically, because very rarely in the rank and file of the military do you actually find highly left-wing people, highly internationalist people, because those kinds of people would never do something like join the military, so you never find them there. It's something I've commented on a few times before, that and I didn't mean this in any critical, negative, or even positive way, just as an objective observation. I've said a lot of people in the military are actually very nationalist and very fascist without necessarily intending to be or even seeing it in that way. And it's because, they will live by a mentality of the group's more important than the individual. The nation matters. You mustn't be lazy. You mustn't, throw your comrade under the bus.
Yeah.
And but obviously things like the MOD, those kinds of people, the political classes of people that control the military, they are selfish. They are greedy. They do have a tendency to be liberal. So do I think the army is controlled by enemies of the state? Well, or enemies of the people? Well, in some respects, yes, but there's a limit to how much control they can actually exercise, because at the end of the day, they still rely on the sorts of people like me, like you, like the sorts of people that actually join the military to have any sort of power.
Yeah, for a comment. There was one question here. We'll have this one on the army, and then we'll move on. There's a couple of more questions, then we'll move on to what we need to talk about. I don't think that, Chris, I don't think national service would work today. People wouldn't accept it and would rebel against it. Alek's thoughts on that one?
Well, if you want my totally honest thoughts, the sort of person who, do you know what? I'm pretty sure it might have been John F. Kennedy that said this. I don't think he was wrong. It might have been somebody else, but I'm sure somebody said this. That sort of person who refuses to do military service or refuses to accept any kind of duty like that to society is not the sort of person that society should even have existing in it. I totally agree with that. I would have absolutely no feeling of responsibility or remorse towards a young man who said to me, I want to live in society and I want rights, but I don't want to have any responsibilities. I as far as I'm concerned, that person is then undeserving of being in society in one way or another. Get rid of them, because I cannot fathom the mentality of somebody who would say, I want to live in a peaceful, prosperous, harmonious society where I am protected by others, but I don't believe I should have to do any of the protecting. That person is a parasite, and that person should be treated like a parasite.
Fair enough. Right, two more questions. Damo, just before put in the chat, you asked that one question. Does tipple, I presume that means what's the favourite drink? Yeah, just answer that one. I think you mean that, but just confirm that, and I'll ask that one next. A question from, I think it was Steve. What's your thoughts on the Ukraine Russia saga? going on at the moment?
Okay, that's a good question. So, can you still hear me? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So, if I were to analyze it based on everything I sort of understand about military strategy, my belief is that it's unwinnable for Ukraine. Now, I'm not saying that Ukraine's wrong and Russia's right, and I'm not saying that Ukraine's right, Russia's wrong. I believe in many respects, both sides have contributed to causing the problem, like which is the case in most wars ever fought. Both sides contribute to the problem. But the issue you've got with Russia Ukraine is that the war is being fought in Ukraine. Ukraine is the country that's being pulverized on a daily basis. It also has less of a population, so it has less of an attrition advantage. The problem that you've got is it's the kind of war where for one side, i.e. Ukraine, the only way for them to win is for the war to end. And I think that it having gone on for over a year, the amount of damage that's been done to that country, it's at the point now where the cost of giving up land to Russia is probably lower than the cost of carrying on in the hope of getting it back. Because what it'll end up with, and personally, I don't think they can get it all back, and I think that from a military point of view, I don't think it's possible. Um, I think for every additional person they send into it, Russia will just send 10 people into it. But I honestly think it's gone beyond the point where it's not worth fighting anymore. The country will be poor for decades trying to repair all of the damage, and it's skeptical in my opinion. The bits of land that they're trying to get back off Russia would largely be ungovernable anyway because they are overwhelmingly populated by Russians. It would basically be like going to war in order to get hold of a territory comparable to maybe Ulster, where no matter what you do or no matter who runs it, half the population is going to be angry. And I'm not convinced that in the case of Ukraine and Russia, it's even a war that's worth fighting at this point.
Good answer, mate. Good answer. Right, we're going to snap through a few of these questions, and we need to get onto our own, and then we'll probably have another 20 minutes of opening up the questions. So, guys, last chance. Put your question in now. Sensible questions, please. Bob on this one, like a favourite drink from Damien. I'll answer my good mate Damien. This is to both of us, Alec. I would say beer-wise, I would have a Peroni, and maybe like a spirit wise, Captain Morgan spiced and Coke or something. Alec, no, actually, sorry, I am teetotal. I love water.
I think the thing I drink most is coffee. I don't drink much alcohol, to be honest, but I drink a lot of coffee. If I do drink alcohol, I tend to drink some sort of lager or a lager shandy because now that's partly because I'm usually driving, but it's also partly because I think the lemonade actually adds to the flavor of the beer. I like the sweetness it puts into it.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on. What we have. Right. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this, but we'll answer the question. Ask the question anyway from British Line. What is Alex's opinion on the current situation with Patriotic Alternative and Homeland? Does he see either of these organisations as a viable option? I'm surprised it took that long. To be fair, with 48 minutes into a question about this.
Right. Do you want? Because I know what I'm going to say to this because I've discussed it. I know what I'm going to say to this. Do you want me to say it now, or do you wish me to?
No, say no. The guys asked the question.
Right. Okay. Now, what I'm about to say is going to upset certain individuals. I ultimately don't care because it is past the point now where sparing the feelings of one or two individuals is of any interest to me because there are certain things that need to be said. Over the last few weeks, there has been this relentless back and forth between PA, Homeland, the people that run them, and it is farcical. This has gone on for weeks, and it is like Chernobyl is on fire in the background, and there's people standing. A few are saying, "No, though, there's nothing to see here. There's no problem." And then you've got others saying, "Here's a list of names of who's to blame. It wasn't us." And everyone is blaming everybody else. Nobody is taking any responsibility. And I am at the point now where I'm looking at both of these things and saying, do you know what? You're a pair of idiots. The hour is late. The situation is grave. The political and social problems in this country are getting worse and worse with every passing day. And there's a pair of idiots arguing over whose fault it is that things have gone wrong. It's both their faults. There is not the time now to be indulging in mediocrity. There's no time for it. It's not helping anyone, and it's not going anywhere. I'm not interested in denying reality just to spare people's feelings anymore. And so if people are saying to me, what do you think I should do? Who do you think I should support? All I'm going to say to them is this: wash your hands of it. If you're sitting there looking at it saying, I don't know whether I should help these people, I'm not sure if I think these people are the solution, then clearly they aren't. Because if they actually were, you wouldn't be sat there doubting it. If people want to have some sort of positive impact, or if people want to do something productive, if people want to wash their hands of this bickering, then just go and find people that are worth your time. Go speak to people like David of Yorkshire Patriots. Go speak to people like INN. Go speak to people like me if you want. Find people that are actually doing useful things instead of blaming everyone else for their own mistakes, and we will find some way of helping you have the effect that you want to have. But I'm past it now. I've had enough. It is just institutional idiocy. There, I've said my piece. People can make of it what they want, and I'm not apologising for any of that.
Nice little rant. Couldn't have said it better myself. I'll keep on to this subject if you don't mind. I mean, you don't have to answer though, Alek. I mean, some people might be thinking, like, when you're looking at over the Telegram stuff, the shots are being fired from the one side, Homeland. I mean, I don't like either of them. Everyone knows that. And I'm watching it from a back seat. The shots are being fired from Homeland. There has been a few little bites from Laura. A couple of DMs has been released or whatever. But maybe people be like thinking, PA are handling this with decency by not saying anything. Like, is it good? Is it a good thing pretending that everything's okay and there's not that much issues, because obviously the left will be watching, the media will be watching. So a PA, he's gone. Hopefully he'll be back. Hopefully he'll be back. Just as I was on a little rant as well. But yeah, guys, how are you enjoying the show so far? He's back. Hopefully he's back. Alek, man, I was on the question roll there.
Oh, did that?
You got kicked out, bro.
I think the internet just briefly dropped out.
Red Bull does not give you, mate. Like, you could have done this when it was a pre-recorded show, not live. But yeah, good job.
I think the internet dropped out. Right. At what point did it
cut
out?
Is the internet gone? Yeah. So I was just saying, some people will probably be thinking, what? To be fair, PA are handling it with decency. All the attacks are coming from the Homeland Division guys. PA are not really saying much. Or is that backfiring on PA because maybe they should be issuing a truthful statement as such? I mean, like, I don't know. What's your thoughts behind it all?
Well, how much of my last 2-minute rant actually went out?
Well, your rants, went fully out. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I went and asked a question. Like, I was going on a big question and then it kicked out. Your rant is fully secure, and I'm sure Probably would be
Good.
clipped and already halfway around the world by now. But yeah.
Oh, good, because yeah, I've had enough. But yeah, who do I think's handling it right? Well, if I'm honest with you, nobody is, because this situation should never have been allowed to get to the state it is, and it wouldn't have done if people were not leaders in their own mind or legends in their own mind and actually had a clue of what they were doing. It wouldn't have got to this point. But at the same time, the level of duplicity and betrayal on the other side of the fence is equally as bad. And so, and when you're saying, well, who's in the right and who's in the wrong? Well, I don't think anybody's in the right, and I think everybody's in the wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I do think looking from the outside, this group, Homeland, has been in making for some time. I mean, obviously we've all heard the recording. The Mark, whatever I might think of him, he was offering a lead branch. He's like, mate, Kenny, you've tried to steal my chats. You've tried to steal all my RO. Well, very minimal ROs according to him. But you've done all these bad things to me. But I'll forgive you. I'm going to even offer you a full-time wage. He's offering him a full-time wage to come back. And obviously, I think this Homeland was in the work for so long that there was just no coming back. There was no coming back.
Yes, I agree. I agree that. I agree that it was likely in the works for much longer than was said. I mean, for a start, the speed at which large numbers of things like banners, flags,
website, website, that's not a joke.
Yeah, the speed with which physical items came out in industrial quantities in a matter of days, maybe 10 days at most. That doesn't indicate to me that was made on the spur of the moment. That is just an objective assessment of it.
Yeah, I mean, I did hear rumors several months ago, Alec. Like as much as people were like, "Oh, well, Chris always puts stuff out." I heard literally about 3-4 months ago that PA Scotland were drifting off to do their own thing. Someone, like a couple of people, actually told me that. However, although that was proved correct, I did not expect that a lot of it. Well, I don't know how much, because they're both telling us different stories. Like obviously the Homeland saying it's the majority of people that's left for us, and people are like, well, only a handful of people are left. I ignore them. So we don't know the actual truth yet, to be honest. But it has shocked me that certain individuals has gone across and left mark for Kenny Smith.
I said I don't fully know who's done what or gone where, really, because nobody will admit to anything, and nobody will make anything clear. Everybody's just blaming everybody else now. To me, if everybody's blaming everybody else, then really everybody should just be blaming themselves. But I think, to be honest, that one of the things that I think causes these kind of issues is there seems to be a very pervasive belief in nationalism, that nationalism is a limited pool with limited money and limited supporters. And the problem with this mentality is that if you follow that mentality, you will invariably see every other nationalist as an enemy more so than a genuine political enemy. Because if you see nationalism as a closed pool of people, rather than saying, well, there are 40, 50 million people who are potential supporters, if you're just looking and saying, well, there's only 500 active nationalists in Britain, therefore that's the pool that I need, invariably you will see every other nationalist as a rival to you, and therefore your priority will be destroying them instead of destroying your actual political enemy. Instead of destroying leftists, instead of destroying communists, even though those people are the root cause of the problem, you attack them second. Your first priority becomes to attack the people who are most closely aligned to you. Now, that mentality is pervasive in nationalism. And when you get two entities, i.e., PA and Homeland, where the people at the top of those entities have that same worldview, the end result will be that they will destroy each other. I can see that's what happens when two people with that view both come into conflict. Neither will actually step back and say, well, you know what, I'm going to look elsewhere. They will just say, I need to poach supporters from him. And the other one says, I need to poach supporters from him. And then all they end up doing is mutually wiping each other out.
Yeah, agree. David said, yeah, Mark even did an advert for soap on PWR a month ago. He was that desperate to keep Kenny. Maybe a good point, but also, can you look outside the box and think, Mark, he's desperate to try and keep his team together, to keep it in one organisation. Because look, I think Mark would have known the split was going to cause this much talking points, obviously I was going to talk about it, but there's so many, you go in there, chats, there's so many questions being asked, and this is where I question Mark's basically just ignoring everything, and Laura's just, don't get me wrong, I do think they've been on the phone a lot, I think they do a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but when they're asked in public, can you address this? You'll get nothing from Mark, and you'll get from Laura. Oh, what are you on about? Nothing's wrong. We've addressed this weeks ago. Well, there was something else that released 3 days ago. Yeah, ignore that. That's just somebody on Telegram. But yeah, he was on stage with him. So, but then you look in the Homeland chats, and they are making constant snipes that PA have no intention to become a registered political party. All they're interested in is money, streaming games. Basically.
Well, as I said, fortunately, I don't have to. I don't have to sit here following who's getting I do because I'm interested, and ultimately I don't want nationalists to fail. I don't want any nationalist groups to fail. But at the same time, I'm not having to hedge my bets on any of these people getting registered with the Electoral Commission. Because I'm now dealing with the Electoral Commission myself, and as soon as I've finished dealing with them, I'll then make the details apparent. But because I'm dealing with them, I to avoid problems, I'm not publicizing political party things because it avoids problems. Once I've finished dealing with the Electoral Commission, then I will. But as I said,
he's logged out. He's logged out. This is it's not been a disaster to be fair, but 2 incidents. He's on the dial-up, isn't he? He's on the dial-up. Someone, come on, we all need to chip in. All have a whip round. Let's get him some actual Wi-Fi. There he is. You're on camera, by the way. You're on camera. Oh, here we are.
Right.
Mate, you're on the dial-up internet, are you, man? You're still living in the 1930s, you are.
As I was saying, I don't need to worry because I'm dealing with the Electoral Commission myself. When I've done that, I will put all the details out. But there's not. I can't waste time, and I'm not going to waste my time and energy on people and things that have clearly demonstrated that they either don't know what they're doing or don't care what they're doing. So, fine, I'll do it myself.
Lenny's, I'll go to the couple of questions there. Lenny says, by the way, guys, any questions on this PA scenario, get them in and we'll ask them straight away. Just have a quick think, get them in, because we do also need to talk about other stuff, a bit more positivity as well. Lenny makes me laugh. The internet's older than your haircut, Alek.
I only got my haircut last week.
Did you go in that time travel? Did you back to the 1930s in Germany? I'm only joking. But yeah, we are British Lion said we are all aware of the stuff that went on in the BNP with Mark and Kenny. Does Mark only have himself to blame for trusting Kenny a second time? Good question. I do believe so, but everyone has a mistake, and obviously, I think he'll be regretting that like mad. I don't know what went on for them to forgive them. To forgive each other so easily. I don't even know the main. Just remember, I was in the chat, bro. I was in their main chat, and not even Laura knew who he was. Can I add a guy in? I trust with my life. And Laura's like, well, I don't even know. He's like, I trust him in my life. Like, and we gave him a chance, and we didn't even know about the rivalry, bro.
To be honest, when people talk about the BNP, the NF, and I think something that, and I'm not just going to comment on who's trusted who or who should have trusted who, but something that I do fundamentally think as well is I think, and I'm absolutely going to be doing this going forward. We've got to get out of this mentality of what I call continuity nationalism. And as in, we've got to get out of this mentality of seeing it as right. There's our generation. We are continuing on the struggle from the last generation. That we've got to get out of this mentality of seeing like PA as a continuation of the BNP, the BNP as a continuation of the NF, the NF as a continuation of BU. And the reason why is because it's a continuity of failure. None of these things actually worked, because if they worked, we now wouldn't be in this situation. So when people are just saying we need to continue and carry on the torch, you're basically carrying on a torch that's burning into nothing, and you're taking over something that has been given to you in a worse state than when someone got it. So why would you take advice from that person on what to do with it? If someone leaves something in a worse state when they're finished with it than when they first picked it up, why on earth would you take lessons from them? Why on earth would you then repeat the same actions they repeated in the belief that it's somehow going to result in anything different? I think we've really got to stop being so reactionary, and we really have to go down the route of what I call visionary nationalism now. We have to stop looking backwards and stop looking into the past, and actually start looking into the future and looking at what could be tomorrow. But trying to just repeat yesterday's mistakes in the belief that they somehow won't end up mistakes is ludicrous.
Yeah. Let me just look through here. I think that might be it. I think, any final questions on the PA stuff? Again, like, I think you've summed it up pretty well, to be fair. I do. I've had a laugh with it, like the Survivor Series poster. I think that was funny, to be honest. I do think we just need to be positive, and this is what I've said. Like, although I've taken the piss and had a bit of a laugh, I do think we need to start looking at the bigger picture now. And there's a lot of groups like yourself, which we're going to go into very, very shortly, by the way.
But you know what?
Democrats, I do think we need to move on from this PA homeless stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I'm happy that, the last 2 to 3 weeks while this rubbish has been going on, myself, the people that I've been working with and other people around the country, I'm pleased that we've just been going and doing constructive things rather than having these stupid arguments.
Yeah, I just think those two are going to continue. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to end. They're going to continue. And again, as I did say in a post, although I don't trust either of them, and I do not advise you to join, but I do think the egos of Colette and Co. and Kenny Smith and Co. could make it into a nice little battle. Okay, well, they've done this. I mean, they look very similar at the moment, don't they? Litter picking, similar speeches, similar demos, similar organisation on both sides. They're going to argue, yeah, because that was us, but I've still seen it from PA as well. So maybe it'll be a bit of a competition there, and maybe they'll just go that extra mile to do something worthwhile. And obviously, the Homeland saying, oh, they don't doing enough to become elected, or they don't stand in elections. Well, maybe they will now. So got to try and take the positives out of it. I've had a great time. It's been fun, but I do think we need to move on. I would like Mark and Laura to be very honest tomorrow. I think this is their chance now, because there's been a lot of questions, not just from us, but I've seen so many questions from just normal people that want to know what's going on, and they get brushed off. Oh, we'll stop bringing Telegram drama. It's like, well, no, you've brought the Telegram drama. You wouldn't be asked questions if this wasn't going on. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is why there's Telegram drama, because of people like you that's helped cause this. I'm not saying it's entirely your fault, but you have to address these concerns that people have. I don't care. Like, I know they won't address questions I've asked. I've tried for 2 years, but there's other people now that's wanting questions answered, and they should be standing on their platform tomorrow and giving all the answers out and then move on. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm at the point now where I just sort of say, do what you like. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect any of the people that I'm working with. It's not going to affect you. They can do what they want. If they want to destroy themselves, then fine. I don't care. That's it's up to them.
Absolutely. Right, Damien says, fuck off. Actually, Bobby, fuck off, Mitchell. Nobody gives a fuck what you think. Thank you for joining my show, by the way. All you do is cause divide. You can't. You can't. mate, I'm a journalist, man. It's been a very positive show. I've just had to ask the question on the top topic of the week, should we say. But yeah, thank you for your comment. Damien said, other than demos, does Alek have any other activism ideas that are different? You know, that's a good question, actually, because we are seeing a lot of demo stuff from yourself.
Right.
Yeah,
So I think that mass events are by far and away the best kind of activism you can do in terms of they yield the most result. Anything else I kind of see as a support action to those actions. Like if it's say leafleting, it's in support of some kind of large scale real world action. There are certain things that have become very staple activities within nationalism that I'm not convinced actually work. I won't go into all this, because I can go on forever and ever because it will be all very like deep and strategic. But I'll write stuff on my channel about it anyway. But I think that these big events are by far and away the best possible events that nationalists can be doing. Now, they're not easy because you invariably have to deal with things like the left. You have to deal with, the logistics of it. But there are ways around that. And for example, the situation with the left. Now, invariably, the biggest problem nationalists have is that if they try and do any sort of large event, the left will try and deplatform that event. So how do you mitigate that? How do you ensure it can't happen? Well, that is when, as much as some people in nationalism like to be very disparaging of what they see as, the football lads, the EDL, whatever it is, they're disparaging of them. But the truth is, those people are the reason why you can get a platform. So they need to be treated with respect because of that. This organization that I'm now in the process of building, which is not an organization for its own sake, it's one of multiple, but this is just the one that I'm working on at this moment in time on its own. This national support detachment. The whole point of this is to be able to make sure that deplatforming cannot occur. It's a way of guaranteeing you can get a platform. Now, I've seen something pop up in the chat where Top Cat is saying that Tommy Robinson held successful mass events and ultimately it was wasted energy. I agree with it.
He has a great point. I mean, like, I have not seen numbers on the streets like that. He really had us in the palm of his hand.
I agree.
Working class as well. He knew what he was talking about, and it was a big situation with the grooming gangs and Islamic issue. But obviously, I think then a certain flag, should we say, came into the demonstrations a lot more and a lot more promotion of that certain country.
Yeah, but the problem with well, not the problem, but the thing you've got to take into consideration with things like these mass events, there has to be a strategic value to it. You have to always be looking at a results-based outcome, and you have to kind of be, every time you're doing some sort of action, you have to think, what will this action lead to? What can I get out of it? I think things that Tommy Robinson made, or reasons why Tommy Robinson could not manifest any sort of strategic gain from these big events. I would say, and I'm not criticizing anybody else, but I would say a lot of it was down to his personal inability as an individual to actually really understand strategically what he was doing. And I'm not saying everything he did was bad. You know, a lot of what he did was good. All I'm saying is that, you know, that there's so many stories of Tommy Robinson going to the pub and getting hammered before he goes out to a demo, and that sort of behavior is the behavior of a man that doesn't really understand strategically what he was doing. Because if he understood
Fair point.
strategically what he was doing, he wouldn't be behaving like that. He would be there thinking about what he was doing the entire time. And so I'm not criticizing. I'm not criticizing the action. I'm not criticizing these big demos. They were brilliant, but he failed to actually turn these tactical successes into any kind of wider strategic success
Well,
because
again,
there.
it's also money again, is it? And it all boils down to money. You know, he obviously wasted. He was donating fortunes to do documentaries like The Rape of Britain. Like that was the main one. Everybody was waiting for that documentary, and then I was there personally at the Old Bailey, and it was basically like an announcement. It's been delayed to do a documentary called Shalom. I mean, like, and everyone's fuming. Like, what? Our money, our good earned money, is not go. Why is it going on some? You know, the J that has nothing to do with us. We want The Rape of Britain. Okay, it came a few years down the line, but it's like it wasn't even a documentary. It's like a series. You know, a bit watered down. But what we were promised, he failed to deliver, and it all again, he was funded by certain people to distract from the truth of what's going on to our people. And but yeah, I just man, but maybe that could happen to a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? Like he really had the British public in the palm of his hand, bro. And the moment the shekel came, you know, that's when it turned into a disaster. And I don't know, maybe he's trying to change his tactics now. Maybe he's not being funded by these people anymore. But that's what we need. We need someone, and I'm hoping, bro, and you're going to promise me now, if you do get to that stage where someone with the last name Steen comes up to you and offer you a fortune, you will reject it, bro, and stay loyal to the British people.
I don't. I'm limited in what I can really do with money anyway. I don't care. I don't care about money. Any money I make, I'm gonna probably sink into my own organizations anyway. I'm not really interested in making money. I must admit, Tommy Robinson is somebody who I would love. I would love to have a conversation with him. I probably wouldn't agree with a lot of what he said, he's someone I would be fascinated to have a conversation with. You know, I wouldn't be worried that he would convert me to anything, but I would just be fascinated to have a conversation with him.
Me too. It's an interview I'd love to do. It'll never happen. Never happen. It'll never happen because of like we're just Nazis to him. So.
Yeah, but a lot of people make this mistake, you see, where where people call it punching right, but a lot of people make this mistake where they sort of believe that if they give some sort of ground to the left will leave them alone. And it's like, no, actually, what happens is the left will come for you even worse because you showed weakness. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
We've got a couple of questions here. All right, okay, yeah, we're on to Lenny. Does Alec believe there is a chance for nationalist organisations to move past petty hatreds and overcome the egos that have been at play for years now to actually work together without the baggage, or is it doomed, shall we say? Yeah.
I think it is absolutely possible. I think it can happen, but it will only happen when leaders who are actually worthy come forward. I mean, the golden rule is if you have to call yourself the leader, then you aren't the leader. And so until people who are capable of actually leading without having to allow their office to carry them instead of carrying their office, which is what they should do, until that happens, then it won't happen. But I absolutely believe it can happen. And when it does, it will be self-evident. You won't have to have people going around calling themselves the forefront of nationalism, because it would be self-evident that they were. Like I said, if you have to call yourself the leader, you're not the leader.
The day that I'll answer the question, Lenny, it can be solved. The moment these people come on the Chris Mitchell podcast is the day when we're all going to unite. I promise you that. And I'm sure Alek will agree to that.
I think something else as well that people have got to do before anything can be resolved is people have got to stop being in denial, and they've got to stop being deluded. Like, for example, I'm looking at it objectively and effectively seeing that nationalism in Britain has gone backwards for the last 100 years. Every organization is just an inferior version of the one that existed the generation before it. But and it's a painful thing to basically tell people to admit that their life's work was a waste of time. It's a very painful thing, but the consequences of them not admitting that are even worse. And until people are prepared to sit there and say, yes, we're actually in a worse state than we've ever been. This is what I did wrong. This is what my predecessors did wrong. Until they're actually prepared to acknowledge that things are going backwards instead of forwards, there's no hope of ever getting out of that conundrum.
I think there's no shame in admitting, because I mean, like, you're not possibly human to go your whole entire life without making mistakes. Me has made plenty of mistakes, but you have to be humble. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. I was like, okay, where have I gone wrong? Let's analyze it. What could I have done better? Go to the drawing board. Okay, I messed up here. I need to do this to move forward. When it's just blatant in denial, I was like, nothing's wrong. Everything's okay.
Exactly. Always okay. I completely agree.
Denial, and you have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, look, I'm sorry, guys. I messed up here. I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to be a better person for it, and we're going to be a better organisation for it as well.
I completely agree. And like,
a lot of people will respect you for having for being truthful and respectful to your audience, rather than like, no, I've lived 35 years of my life, and nothing's ever gone wrong ever, and nothing will ever go wrong. It just lies. It's blatant lies and disrespectful to your loyal audience. Tell them, look, okay, we've made X, Y, Z mistake. We've gone to the drawing board. We know where we went wrong, and we're not going to let you down again. We're going to do our utmost to bring back positivity to our nation and to you and our people.
Well, that's just the. There's a very army way of looking at it, where at the end of the day, if there's a terrible, grave situation, arguing over whose fault it is pointless, because the priority is actually fixing the problem. And that's the way I look at it. I'm not interested in blaming people for, as much as I do think certain people are to blame for the fact that nationalism is going backwards. I absolutely do. At the end of the day, I'm actually more interested in fixing the problem than blaming anyone for it.
Yeah.
And so, but until people are prepared to just even say things have gone wrong, if people are going to sit there and just keep saying things are better than they've ever been, when in fact they're actually worse, then there's no hope. There's no hope for those people to ever do anything of value. It's like plotting. It's like planning an offensive when you're constantly being driven back. It's so delusional that you're never going to be able to actually implement those plans. People have got to stop being in denial. You know, if I do things that don't work, you know, I've done things even in the last few months that haven't worked as well as I wanted them to work. You know, and the solution was like I'll give you an example, a personal example. Middle of March in Hull, 2,000 leaflets went out for that, and it resulted in 2 people turning up. Right. The conclusion that I've drawn from that is that physical mass leafleting is pointless unless you do it on an industrial scale with the Royal Mail. That's the conclusion I've drawn from that. Okay, my fault, because I was the one who got people to do that, and it accomplished nothing. Fine, I accept that. I was wrong. That is what I've learned from it. Right, so next time we don't bother with that. If we're going to do something like that, the solution is a more targeted approach. That's it. That then is right. Nobody's in denial. Nobody's delusional. That's it. That problem won't occur again now. But too many people don't do that. But if they did do that, they would suddenly find all these issues are actually very solvable.
Mate, you just smashed out the park, and I'm not criticising because I think, like I've said this for quite a while about, all go back to PA and any organisation that does this mass leave thing. Oh, did you know? Like someone said in a comment, do you know that? I'm sorry if I got the number wrong. I'm sure he said, you know what? We've done 250,000 leaflets last year, and I'm like, okay, like, and what's he getting you? It's pointless, and I'm so sorry to say that because the activists have worked so hard to put all those leaflets out. Like that's so many. No, I don't even know if it was 250,000 or million. He said I can't remember, but I'm so sorry if I'm wrong. But it was an extortion amount, right? And it's achieved very little. I think you need to move past that, and that's very big of you to literally say like, we thought this would work for this demo. Only 2 turned up. That goes to show that these leafleting just through doors, random doors, isn't working. You need to adopt a new strategy and
I think something as well that people.
Why not go to stalls, Alek? Why not go to stalls? Why not go to? Look, I mean, I know a lot of nationalists don't like football, but the fact is, mate, fucking super majority of white English people love football.
Well, what I will say is let's look and see how successful the Walsall demo is on Monday, because the people that have organised that have, in my opinion, they've made some very, very strategically sound decisions of how they've advertised that and the actions they've taken to promote that.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced that it's going to pay off. So
what actions have they taken then? What?
Well, I won't go into it because it's not.
Well, I'll tell you what. If it
works,
I
will no doubt explain it afterwards, because if those strategies work, they're the sort of strategies that I will then use off the back of that.
Okay, yeah.
And I think something that has really got to be gotten out of in nationalism is people have got to stop engaging in activism for the sake of engaging in activism. They've got to stop doing things just because that's an activity that apparently gets done, when there's no result and there's no kind of yield, but people do it because it's just a thing that people in nationalism do. People are, if I was to say to someone, right, why are you doing this? And they can't immediately give some sort of strategic answer as to why they're doing it, then in my mind, it's a waste of time and resources, and it shouldn't be getting done. It's not viable when you have a very limited amount of people and a very limited amount of resources to be engaging in things that don't work, or that the real world evidence says don't work, just to spare the feelings of the person who thought it was a good idea. There's nothing wrong with being wrong, but you can't pretend something that's failing is succeeding just because you don't want to upset the person whose idea it was. You've got to tell them, and the person whose it is, they've got to not delude themselves. They've got to just accept when something doesn't work.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I would be. I've delivered hundreds of leaflets. I don't know how many to be exact, but mate, if I kept delivering them and seeing no end result, yeah, I'd be so disheartened. I'd be like, I would know there's been no end result, and I'm not going to be one of those. But look, I've done my bit. Okay, it's failing miserably, but I've done my bit. We need to think outside the box. And again, I'll bring it back to the football. Yeah, the football is so important. Look how much noise when we had the White Lives Matter from, what's his name? The guy from Burnley way. Oh, I can't remember his name. Hopefully someone in the chat does. He originally started it over a Man City Burnley game, I think it was. And then PA actually done it from Man City Liverpool. What the biggest, that at the time was the biggest game across world football, by the way, not just English football, world football. And PA done a stunt we were playing. more of this, and the media attention it got was amazing, immense. You know, more of this needs to be done. More of this needs to be done. They are our people. Stop saying, "Oh, they support Ngubu." Yeah, well, of course they do, but it's that. So did I. I used to go up and down in the country with Birmingham every single week without fail, and I found myself in this sphere. You know, these are still our people that can be woke up. Jake Temple, maybe give or take. Yeah, completely correct, yeah. Set up a stall outside their ground. You know, like when we was in PA, we took a banner outside the Mill ground. Yeah, no one was there, but we took it outside and we just spammed it in Millwall comment sections. The love we received, yeah, the love. Do more of that. Do more of that. Go outside their clubs and put the banners outside their clubs. Go on their Facebook and tweets and different social media groups that particular club has. Post in there like, here's us outside your club supporting White Lives Matter or Europe for the Europeans or whatever. You know, like with factual statements and factual leaflets. And there's a whole wide audience there to be gained at, man, and it needs to be utilised.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said whatever my views on, you know, football and all that.
You don't have to like football, though. That's what I'm saying, Harry. You don't have to go to the actual match. It's about reaching out to the people.
The point is, yeah, just I think this is something as well that people, not just in nationalism, I would say this applies to everybody. You know, it's something people have got to accept is just because oneself doesn't like something or doesn't think something, it doesn't mean that everybody else doesn't like or doesn't think that. And just because, you know, somebody thinks that the solution is X, it doesn't mean everybody else thinks the solution is X. But if you want people to follow a certain path or implement a certain solution or think a certain thing, you have to at least try to understand what those people's motives are instead of just projecting your own motives onto them.
Yeah, right, okay. We're going to play an Alek speech right now. I think this was from Lincoln, was it, Alek?
Yes, I think the one, if it's the one I heard the clip for before we went on, it is the Lincoln one. Okay,
guys, we'll play this one. He has also done a speech in Skegness last weekend. Please join his channel. I will put his channel into the chat very shortly, but please enjoy this one. If you've already watched it, might be a good time to go and make yourself a cup of tea and a chocolate hobnob, of course, the best for cup of teas. They're like submarines. So if you have already watched it, good time to make a cup of tea. If not, please enjoy and leave a comment.
That have come from Scampton, that have come from the villages around, that have come from outside Lincolnshire, and that have come from as far away as London. There's probably someone, at least one person here, who's come from even further away. So firstly, thank you to everyone who's come here today. Now, I'm just going to quickly begin before I hand you over to some others. I want to talk about why we created this event and why we did this. So, as soon as we heard about what was happening regarding RAF Scampton, we immediately became aware that there was a degree of subversion going on. There was a lot of dishonesty, and we started to see, becoming as reasonably prominent figures in supposedly official campaigns, some individuals that were also prominent in the Linton-on-Ouse campaign, who tried and failed to be prominent in the Cottingham campaign, and whose objectives were vastly different to the objectives of the people who actually lived in those areas. And so, in order to prove what I was saying, I threw down the gauntlet and I asked, since every party was professing their support for Scampton and their support to get rid of this problem, I asked them to come here today. And I'm going to read through their statements that they gave to a newspaper in the week. From the Conservative councillor Roger Patterson, he said the following: "It annoys and upsets me that people are hijacking an issue to further their own cause. They don't care about Scampton. Their only interest is in migrants. Councillor Patterson, your interest is in one thing only, and that is yourself and your own pocket. From the Labour opposition leader in Lincoln, Hamish Falconer, a man who, interestingly enough, has made himself prominent in the subverted campaign, despite the fact that what we demand is the same thing as him. This is what he said. He said that we were chancers trying to whip up hatred in Lincoln and Scampton, and he then went on to say this: my grandfather was in the RAF, and he is doing the exact opposite of what Mr. Yerbury, that's me, is doing. Mr. Falconer, I do not need to haul out family heirloom second-hand military experience to make a point, because unlike you, I was actually in the army for 6 years, and that sort of garbage might wash on normal people, but it doesn't wash on men like me.
Exactly.
And from the Liberal Democrat candidate, Natasha Chapman, she said the following: he, that's me, made it sound like it was something unobjectionable and that people might not be aware of who I am and what I think. Well, I actively encourage you. If you want to go on Hope Not Hate, look me up. If you want to go and read what the left have written about me, look me up. I don't care, because all I tell is the truth. And it's apparent to me that in this three-way faction dispute, because there are 3 factions in play, it's become apparent to me that the one thing that differentiates what we're doing today from the others is that we have made no misrepresentations about who we are, what we want, what our objectives are, and unlike the others, we actually put our money where our mouth is. So the 3 factions we have in play. Firstly, we have this subverted faction. Now, it's interesting that people who would claim to be politically neutral would also put themselves at the disposal of a political party. That's point number 1. Secondly, we have a counter-protest up the road. Interestingly enough, which is also being run by the unions. The unions who are allies of Labour. So what we have is 2 supposedly opposed factions actually being controlled by the same hands, joining forces to decry us here today. So this is what I meant when I talked about the subversion and the deception. And this is something that a lot of people might not really understand, but it's something that myself and the others that have been involved throughout the last year in these sort of campaigns, we've seen it. And so when we saw that it was happening, that was the point when we decided that if it had to be done, we would do it ourselves. So without any further ado, and I'll talk again in a bit, without any further ado, I'd like to hand you over now to a colleague of mine, Scott, who a few months ago was the organiser of a big march in Skegness, which was surrounding this exact same issue, but in the Skegness community, regarding to the use of hotels being used to accommodate large numbers of asylum seekers. So I'm going to hand you over to Scott, and he's going to say a few words, because what's vitally important is that we don't allow this to become a campaign driven by, don't put it in my neighbourhood, put it in someone else's. It's not going to be an acceptable solution to simply tip the garbage over the garden fence and say it's the neighbour's problem to deal with. It's a national problem and it needs a national solution. Yep. So I'll hand you over to...
Superb speech, man. Absolutely brilliant. I couldn't listen to you all day long. It's been an amazing stream so far as well. Let's get some numbers in the chat, guys. I don't care if you want to put 14, 88, 1, 6 million, put whatever number. Let's give this guy some huge respect. It takes some real balls. I actually got told the other day, because how do you stream? You must take balls. I'm just talking between a person and to a chat room. But to get there in front of an audience, as much as you do, Alek, you deserve huge amounts of respect. So credit to you, obviously credit to all the organisers and other speakers as well. But please, guys, let's give this guy credit where credit's due, man. That takes absolute balls of steel. And I do actually want to show a speech from a very, very good pal, Anglo-Joe, shortly as well. But let's give Alek the respect he deserves. Alek, over to you, man. Absolutely amazing, man. Very impressive. You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, I was muted. No, it was a good day. I'm pleased with how it went. There was a reasonable number. There was a good mixture of hardcore supporters and people who sort of were on the fence or undecided, and I think a lot of them, came away with a good impression. The left were also quite weak, which I really took pleasure in. They were very weak in Skegness as well.
Yeah.
Everything went well. We do actually have another rally in Lincoln on July the 8th.
This is sorry, because I want to shout. I don't know if she's still watching. Paris did ask this question. Obviously, we missed sidetracked. Paris was in the chat. If you're still there, she will be doing a show with Alek at some point. That is in the works. Maybe I'll get her on another stream. Fantastic speaker as well. Alek did. Paris did ask, "Is what's the upcoming demo?" So for any newcomers or anyone that doesn't know, please give the dates and locations of the upcoming demos that's been confirmed.
Okay, so the ones that I'm tracking, because I'll be at them, is Walsall on the 8th. That's not my demo. I've just been invited. And then that have been confirmed. The one that was on June the 3rd has today been moved to June the 10th. The one in Leeds on June the 3rd has been moved to June the 10th to avoid the rail strikes. Then July the 8th in Lincoln is the next one that's totally confirmed after that. But there are likely to be others that will be announced, soon enough. It's going to be quite busy, but those are the three big ones.
There you go. Yeah, Paris is still in the chat. Let's give a big hello to Paris, Bubba Case, whatever you want to say. We're looking forward to the stream, you and Alek as well at some point. But yeah, there you go. There's a change of date there. It's not the 3rd of June, it's the 10th of June now in Leeds. That should be hopefully a massive one. Again, guys, we need to publish. I said this earlier as well in your chat, I think, Alek, which was more actually about the elections, where I think PA got good success from at one point as well was when we went on the radio stations. We went on LBC. We obviously called it the grouping. We lied to get on the radio station. We mentioned PA, and we went on Google Trends like on that same night or whatever, and it went through the roof. People researching who PA was, and I think this is something that we need to start pushing again. Like not to just push an organisation, but to push demonstrations. Like, are you from the Leeds area? Like, if you genuinely care about what's going on, join us on the 10th. You're not speaking to the host. The hosts don't like us. They don't want us on. They don't want us to air our opinions. But if you can get on, we need to push, whether it's an organisation, an election period, or a certain demonstration. LBC Talk Radio has hundreds of thousands of viewers. Like we are stuck, whether we like it or not, we're stuck in an echo chamber. If we do somehow get on YouTube, like we are now, we're shadow banned. This doesn't come up for no people. Oh, we'll get messages to like, I didn't know you was on. Like, I've just seen you post on Telegram. I didn't get a notification. And I'm sub to you. This is the kind of stuff that happens with social media. We need to reach out to the mainstream media ourselves by utilising it, by going on radio stations. If you can get onto talk shows on the TV as well, what's your thoughts on that?
No, well, I think realistically, any strategy that gets results is a good strategy. All of those things, I think they work. That in terms of publicity, given that the principal tactic of the enemy is to prevent nationalism from ever having a platform, I would argue that anything which causes you to get a platform is therefore inherently good. I'm very much a believer that there's no such thing as bad publicity. There's just publicity or not.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Is there anything there? Damien, I'll be in Leeds and Lincoln. Good on you, mate. Lenny responds, finally might meet Ross Kemp. He does look like Ross Kemp. He honestly does. Met him in Norwich. So yeah, that very much Ross Kemp there, Damo. Yeah, let's go on to mate. I want to show this little video from Skingness, I believe it was, and this is what I like to see, the flags, the marching. You know, if this doesn't get you up for it, then I don't know what will, man. It's class, man. It's the numbers as well. How many do you reckon was there on that day, Alek?
To be honest, watching that, it seemed like it was more than I seem to remember. I thought it was a sort of 100 to 120. It seems like it was more than that. Oh, yeah, I actually, do you know what? I was actually happy that the left turned up in that state. We did think until the day before that they'd actually bottled it and weren't going to show up at all. I'm actually glad that they did come because I enjoyed every second of the humiliation of that.
Absolutely.
Of course, the unions were there as well, grifting off of subsidies of actual working people.
Of course, yeah. Right, guys, we've got about 15 minutes of the show left, so please put your questions in now. I've got a couple of things I want to discuss. I want to show one video of Anglo-Joe and two little other things as well. So I've got three things I want to discuss with Alek here. But if you have your own questions, please put them in now and we will get them answered. Big shows ahead as well, coming soon. Alek in Paris, Alek and Nick Griffin, I'm hoping, and hopefully a round two between Paris and Nick Griffin, and also Nick Griffin and David Clues. Those part ones are already on the channel if you want to go and check them out. And also, I'm going to venture out and think of a few other shows that we can put on. And I'm also in talks with one or two people, which I'm not going to announce until they're over the line. I've made that mistake before, bro. I've announced them and they just don't materialize. So I'll keep those close to my chest, shall we say. But yeah, we'll show Anglo-Joe, good mate. Honestly, I was so proud of him, man. Like, to go on a stream, it's only 2 minutes, but mate, 2 minutes on a stage.
Oh, you know, it was great to have him there, and it was nice to meet him in person. And yeah, when he wanted to give a speech, we were more than happy to have him do that. It was a privilege to have him there.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick story actually. I was at community service last week, Alek, and yeah, for those that don't know, I'm doing 150 hours community service for protesting against drag queens, teaching children, shall we say. But we was cleaning the graveyard, and I showed the supervisor on the break times. Oh, this is a video of what the INN done. I was there, like cleaning the graveyard, and she's oh, that's good work. I was like, oh, you was on community service before then? I was like, nah, we do this anyway. And I thought that was quite a nice, blissful moment. You know, yeah, you just put him on community service. We'll do this anyway. We want to protect our community all the way. So it doesn't matter what you give me as a community service project. I'm going to relish it because I know I'm doing it for my community and for my people.
No, fair one. Well, it's one of those things like, I think something I've said for a long time is that there's sacrifices to be made, and a lot of people think that the path to the success of nationalism is an easy one, but it's not easy. It's rather miserable, rather lonely, and full of various difficulties, but it's how you face those difficulties that matter, really. And good on you for doing what you're doing anyway.
Cheers, bro. Right, let's play Joe's speech. And I've got two more things to maybe quickly go through. Guys, again, if you want to ask any question to Alek, please put them in very soon.
Hi, folks. Just wanted to say a few words. Now, we all don't want to be here today, do we? We don't want to spend our hard-earned money travelling up and down the country. We've got guys here who travelled 8 hours. We've travelled hours and hours, used fuel money to come down here. These people down the road, they think that we're just here to cause aggravation and disrupt the way of being around the country. The truth is the exact opposite. Now, the big issue here is we've developed now into a low-trust society. When was the last time that you didn't lock your door when you left the house, or freaked out that you thought that you hadn't locked your door in your house? When I was a kid growing up, you didn't lock your doors. You'd just leave it open, If you came home from school for whatever reason, in the middle of the day, your next door neighbour would look after you until your mother got home from work. It was just the way that things were. We had a great, solid community, and that thing has been eroded day by day just by compromising all of the time. We are a great nation of people who are tolerant, and we look after people. If there is ever a time that we can do a good turn for someone else or for another nation that are in trouble, we are there at the front line every single time. But now we need to look after ourselves. We need to start looking inwards at what we actually need as a people, and we need to start addressing the fact that if this is changing at such a rate that it is, we only need to look in the not so distant future for things to be so different that we're never going to be able to pull it back. If we are ever to make any change and to have some of that community back, we have to start now. You have to start standing now. Stand with us. All these people clapping down the road, don't just clap to us. Get up and walk with us. All right, everyone. So thank you for everything. Guys, you're amazing, and I'm so proud to be stood here with you. You're amazing. Thank you. See you later. I'm Joe. Take care.
Mate, boy, tears to my eye. What a little Joe, man. Right, mate, let's get some numbers in the chat for Anglo-Joe, man. What a respectful guy, man. Absolutely fantastic. Again, that question there, I don't know. You'd have to speak to Joe about that, but I'm just going to give him full amounts of respect and credit, man. It's real balls of steel to stand on a stage like that. And he smashed it, man. Just spoke it from the heart. You could tell it would probably be, obviously, yeah, you could tell it was just done off the cuff. And as you do, Alek, you don't really plan these speeches, do you? So, and I admire that. Do you know what I mean? If I was to do one, yeah, I probably would have to write it down and look on a piece of paper. To be honest, I'm not going to lie. I could probably do a little bit of work, but man, I probably froze under pressure there. But so anyone that speaks to an audience like that, man, hats off to you, man. The
Yeah,
Well,
no, I agree with you. It was great for him to be there, and yeah, I'm glad he got up to speak.
Yeah, same. All right, yeah, actually, we'll. Well, in fact, there was one video I wanted. Oh, there was two things I wanted to share, but they're a bit negative, and I think it's been quite positive. I don't know what to discuss it, but we'll go to Rory Herbert's question here. Has Alek recalled his scariest moment while serving in the Rifles Regiment? If not, I can understand why the artillery refer to them as the poor bloody infantry.
Oh, do you know what? I still can't really rack anything that's gonna be that in. In fact, I'll tell you one. Actually, I can think of one. I've thought of something. In Canada, having to use a machine gun on a live range where there was something wrong with the machine gun, and every time you pulled the trigger, it wouldn't stop firing until it ran out of ammunition. So it would just run away and constantly fire. And that was terrifying having to deal with that, because the only way of making it stop was to grab hold of the belt of ammunition and yank on it so it jammed it. And that meant taking your hand off of it in order to do that. So every time you did that, the gun was then effectively flying or uncontrollable. And I'd only been in battalion for about 2 months at that point. So it was not the point where I would question stuff. I would just mindlessly do it. But that was pretty terrifying.
There you go. There you go. Alex May, I think I know who that is. Let's get some music blasting out next time. Skegness look great. Well done all. I think that's a great point. You know, I do think like get a speaker system and play, you know, the right kind of music as well. Like I played at the start of this show, Keep St. George in My Heart, Keep Me English. I think songs like that being played. There's a revolution coming. There's a song I'm going to be playing shortly, which I'm going to reveal. Yeah, I think playing tunes like that, man, it'll get everyone going. Do you agree with that, Alek?
What, having music at these events?
Yeah, but certain kind, not playing not playing Sam Smith. I mean, it's got to be certain certain songs.
I think there's sort of an element of the music brings in the sort of crowd that you want to have. And I mean, I like the military music because it just makes it like a parade, and it gives people, if nothing else, a spectacle. And people will then come to things just because they want some sort of entertainment. But then while they're there, you've then got a potential audience. I mean, in ideally going forward, like long term or even mid-term goal, it would be great to have like a brass band or something like that. It'd be great to have that because people would then come to things just for that. But then while they're there, you've got them.
But to be a bit more like the Northern Ireland marching bands.
Yeah, it would be great to have that. I mean, obviously, it requires having the people with the skills and the political interest. It's not impossible. It's just hard to organise.
The people in Northern Ireland, they grew up. That's their culture, isn't it, over there?
Yeah, well, it's something that I think Nick Griffin touched on it as well. But it's something that needs to come back. People have got to sort of take this cultural view, I think, and you know, it's about, you know, it's about finding your. I've lost the words, but no, it's I think you've got to give people some sort of spectacle.
Yeah, agreed. Well, we'll go on to the last few questions. In fact, I'm not gonna show you. It's nothing major. It's a bit negative, so I'm not going to end the show the negative. I want to go through the last couple of questions. If you've got a question, ask it now, guys, and then we'll get some final thoughts from Alek. Right. So, what does Alek think of about the Reform Party, Richard Tice?
So, my concern with Reform is, from everything I've seen, I think the way that the actual people in Reform, the members, the candidates, whatever, think, and the way the people that run it think are not the same. Because having had conversations with various people that are actually standing for Reform, their thoughts on things are very similar to you and I. But the people that run that party, I think, are effectively just Tories, and I can't see it actually offering much. Like, I don't really know how Reform differs from the Tories. I don't know. I couldn't tell you one thing that's different. You know, but I'm not convinced that the people that run it, even if they did agree with some of the things that people like you and I said, would actually have the willpower to do anything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do think they were controlled opposition myself, to be honest. What was so Ugly Truth says, what was Alex's major lifetime red pill apart from seeing the Chris Mitchell podcast?
What is my what? Sorry.
He said, what was I was a joke. What was Alex's major lifetime red pill? And I did add on seeing not except seeing my podcast, but that was a joke. That was a joke. But yeah, the question was, what was Alex's major lifetime red pill?
Oh God, do you know it's a weird question. I don't think I've had one. I don't think that I don't think that there's like a specific moment where I've had some sort of mad epiphany and I've
Would
been
you
like,
say just seeing what's going on in front of your eyes, basically?
I mean, I could think of something recently where I could say that there was a red pill moment was when it clicked with me that the trade unions were to blame for the hard left. That was a moment where once I realized that, I couldn't not realize it.
Rory Herbert has basically asked the question that I was going to ask in a nutshell, but in his own words. What is the ultimate aim of the National Support Detachment, and what are Alex's plans to get there?
So the ultimate aim, and I kind of touched on this before, but basically the aim of it is to ensure that the political solutions soon to come cannot immediately suffer from the problem of being deplatformed by the left. You know, the aim is to mobilize larger numbers of people who are broadly in agreement with the same sort of political views. They don't have to be exactly in agreement. They just have to be sort of broadly in agreement. And it's also to provide a framework by which various groups of people can collaborate without necessarily having to give up their individual identity as their own groups or as their own people, if you sort of see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, will you be planning on standing in any election as an independent or as a group? I mean, is this a plan of yours?
Well, like I said earlier in the stream, I'm now dealing with the Electoral Commission myself. So, well, as soon as that's sorted, I will put information out regarding that.
So we can do a part 3 when all that's been dealt with, yeah.
Yeah, but that'll be when it's all sorted. I won't go on about it till then.
Understandable. I think this is probably the last question. If you want to answer it, ask right now, literally right now, as I'm asking this one. Question: if Reform did get power, wouldn't the door to debate be at least slightly ajar compared to Labour and Conservative?
Would it be what? Would it be slightly more closed?
I guess that's what it means. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think it would. I think there's sort of people who, even if they proclaimed it, they wouldn't actually, they wouldn't actually do it. They don't have the will to do it. They don't have the mental strength to do it. Even if they claimed they would reduce it, I wouldn't trust them until I actually saw concrete results.
Well, you look at the Conservatives. I mean, all those years ago, they promised Labour was in power right now, and we're going to lower immigration. We're going to do X, Y, Z. Since they got power, records above anything Labour's ever done. None of them are to be trusted.
Yeah.
All right, I think we'll kind of end it there, unless anything comes through later on. Alek, has been an amazing show. 2 hours and 3 minutes. It's absolutely flown by. I hope to do another part in the future when something more happens with your organisation and materialises. Very best of luck. I'm sure the election numbers are coming in right now, probably over the next few hours. I don't know how long we have to wait, maybe till the morning to find out results. I'm not convinced. I'm not confident. However, to everyone that stood, credit to you and credit to your nation, credit to your people, everyone that stood by these people, went out leafleting, whoever you were, fair play to you. And we need to keep pushing the message as much as we possibly can. As I said, go on radio stations, go football matches. You can do so much send emails to your MPs. You can do so much, even if you can't get out of the house. You can do so much from home. We've got to keep trying. Again, I don't think I'm black-pilled. I'm realistic. However, we can do all we can is do all our best, whether you can leave the house or not. So please keep pushing the good fight. Alek, over to you. Final words. Anything you would like to say? Please give a nice little positive speech.
No, well, you know what? Whatever you're doing or whatever people are doing, as long as it's constructive, it's good. And I think, well, yeah, I mean that just about sums it up. If it's something constructive, it's good. And you know, thanks to everybody that's come to the events that have been going on, not just my own events, but to anything that's been going on. Thank you to everybody that's lent their support, and yeah, onwards and upwards.
Well done. Please go and follow Alek Yerbury on Telegram. Alek Yerbury, I think that's what you have to type in on Telegram. I'll put the link in the chat shortly as the song is playing. Big shows coming ahead, guys. Alek Yerbury and Paris. I can't wait for that one. It's going to be a lot more intellectual than me interviewing him, that's for sure. That's not putting myself down. You know, that those two will be an amazing show. Alek Yerbury and Nick Griffin, hopefully in the works. And also part 2s with David Close and Nick Griffin and Paris and others as well. I'm also in talks with 2 people to hopefully do a podcast. Whether that'll be live, I don't know. But good chat tonight. Thanks very much. So good to hear fighting talk from Alek and Chris. Thank you, guys. Let's give. I don't want any support, guys. This man here, Alek, deserves all the support. If you want to give numbers, your thank you messages, put it in the live chat right now. Please follow this guy. He's doing amazing work. If you do want to follow me, please subscribe to me. This year, because I've got community service, working and paying off a big debt to a drag queen, all I've got time for really is my 12 country challenge. So if you do like travel videos, some of it is political, some of it is just scenery, please tune in. I've done 2 Serbia episodes, Italy, France, and I'm going to Macedonia, Hungary, and Serbia in 4 weeks' time. So if you do like a bit of travel videos, you can go and watch them. But also we'll still be streaming throughout the year. So thank you, guys. I hope you all have a blessed bank holiday weekend. Look after yourself, look after your family, and always put England first. Peace out.
As is a nation, it's one nation of old, a land built by heroes, their stories we've been told, built upon a history of toil, sweat and tears, Christian land of over 1,000 years. But listen to me, people, these words you can't ignore. Today England needs her sons and her daughters like never before. Feel the pride, hear the call, from Land's End to Adrian's Wall. This is England, the land of St. George. This is the land of the free, where the white cliffs meet the sea. 1,000 years of kings and queens, Oxford and Cambridge, English law, Charles Dickens and Bobby Moore, Drake and Nelson sailing the 7 seas. But listen to me, people, these words you can't ignore. Today England needs her sons and her daughters like never before. Feel the pride, hear the call, from Land's End to Adrian's Wall. This is England, the land of St. George. I see the Downs and the Yorkshire Dales, the New Forest and the Lakeland Fells, and there I hear Wainwright calling me. Now every Englishman he knows the greatest beauty be an English rose, and within this land my spirit will ever be. But listen to me, people, these words you can't ignore. Today England needs her sons and her daughters like never before. Feel the pride, hear the call, from Land's End to Adrian's Wall. This is England, the land of St. George. England, oh England, every woman, every man. What became of Jerusalem in this green and pleasant land? I won't run, I'll never hide, they'll always see my English pride. This is England, the land of St. George. This is England, the land of St. George.